up the volume, pump up the volume, pump up the volume.
Pork chop sandwiches.
We shall never surrender.
Evil shenanigans.
Alright, here we go. How y'all doing today? Once again, Most Freaky Tick. I'm Gunny, and I'm your host, guys. It shows there at the bottom. Just coming in and talk about a couple things. First off, want to give a little background about me. I was able to get my bachelor's degree in history, and I got it in presidential history. So one of the things I do like to talk about from time to time is certain things about presidents and aspects of them, their behavior, shit like that. So yeah, and it just to me it's something that's funny. It's really important, and it's really kind of curious of how certain things that have happened. So um, one of the things that I always thought was like really interesting as of late is being alive in the 80s and understanding exactly how big Reagan and Bush were at the time. And then, I mean, just the absolute political rock stars that those two were. And then, of course, it being no fanfare, bumper stickers were available, but not as obviously not as available now. But the popularity of Trump now compared to that, it to me, it's something that's just it's just absolutely mind blowing. Of it, we went through a time of Jimmy Carter going from 79 to 80, and it was just absolutely terrible. And then going into the Reagan thing, so to me, it was so much easier. But the whole popularity of Trump thing, that is something that I still, I'm still trying to wrap my brain around. I mean, and I'm not saying that he's not a cultural phenomenon. He is. He most definitely is. And it could be whatever your definition is of why. And if it's negative, cool. If it's positive, outstanding. But I really don't fucking care. It is what it is. I'll just put it that way. But I mean, I'm talking about the whole T-shirts thing. I'm talking about sixth graders and seventh graders having T-shirts, and it's like at the time, yeah, when I was fourth grade, fifth grade, I was into politics. Bush was my guy, and so was Reagan. But I was I was a nerd, so I was a little different. But compared to now, the jocks, the sixth grade, seventh grade jocks are wearing Trump shirts, and if you were to ask them, all right, well, what's his political stance on, so and so, they probably wouldn't have an answer. They would just go, "Why are you asking me, libtard?" And it's like, whoa, 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 shit, and this shit just got hot real fast. So anyway, it's just that kind of, just that popularity that I just don't understand. But eventually, over time, it will be scrutinized and actually be examined. And I just curiously want to know why all this had happened. So, okay, first things first. I did kind of digress on that, but like I said, I have nothing against Trump at all. I mean, this last election, the person that was running against him wasn't even voted in by her own party. It was, and not to mention, it wasn't even their first choice. So I'll just go ahead and leave that there. And so it wasn't really, it wasn't even a fair fight. It was like if you were to put up like Super Bowl numbers of the best team in the AFC and the worst team in the NFC, it was going to, that's pretty much what it was. So it wasn't even a fair fight, really. But anyway, with that being said, first thing I would like to get into is something I have always found to be interesting is plurals. So one of the things that I always found interesting is plurals of animals, and that it might be nerd humor, it might be a gotcha moment that you have with your friends, but but anyway, there's some of these plurals that actually make sense that I think that are really interesting. So one of them you completely understand is like a sloth of bears. Like, okay, a pride of lions, pack of dogs, or any sort of like quadruped, like a wolf, like pack, of course. All that stupid shit from The Hangover, like the pack and stuff like that. But parade of elephants. Okay, and that's something that's really cool. That would come down to, let's say, like if you know anybody from Texas A&M, the Elephant Walk. All right, so a parade. So that makes sense. Hopefully, that's a good Texas A&M plug. Whatever. And Gang of Elk is another one. Gang of Elk. So that one's really interesting. But the ones that really, really make sense. Okay, a tower of giraffes. Like, okay, that makes sense. All right, because uh, giraffes are like the animals in the kingdom that a lot of people like to pow with. So it's like the big strong dude. If you're in like in prison, you'd like to make friends with the big strong guy. All right, well, you'd like to make friends in the animal kingdom with a really, really tall dude like a giraffe because he can see shit coming. Like, hey, there's a fucking lion over there, and I'm gonna start walking this way. So it's like kind of like one of those things. If you've ever been on like, let's say like a naval vessel or a oil rig, the safety guy, if they're running, if certain people are running, you run too, you live. This is fun shit like that. Anyway, another one, Troop of Gorillas. I really don't get that one. Team of Horses, a cackle of hyenas. That makes sense. Have you ever heard of that? Hyenas, which I have, and they're really loud and they're really obnoxious. Heard them in Australia one night, and when I was not stationed there, but we were there in a hotel, and it was like on the outskirts of town, and you could hear them. It's kind of like coyotes out in like South Texas. You ever been in South Texas? You know coyotes, but their problem out there is hyenas. So let's see, a conspiracy of lemurs. That one's always fun. Prowl of leopards. That one definitely makes sense. Pride of lions. We know that one. Company of moles. Murder of crows. Got that one. A yoke of oxen, which that's another one that makes a lot of sense. But the other one, a stench of skunks. Yes, yes, that one actually makes sense too. So, an ambush of tigers. So, one of the things that's really cool about this is that you know that it's like some dumb Neanderthal looking at it and go, ooh, 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 stench of skunks, stinky, or like cloud of bats is another one. It was like a cloud of bats. You're like, okay, it was a bunch of shit in the sky. I was like, anyway, all right. So that being said, the next thing I want to get into, it's been a pretty bad week. I'm gonna pull some luck cards here. We're gonna go to the no chance and the community sack. See if we get there. So first, we're gonna go to no chance, and we'll begin. I'm gonna pull a card here, and oh no, this says no good. No good here. Okay, Officer McKinney thinks you look pretty cute in them jeans. That can't start good, especially our uh, man of the law here thinks you look cute. Okay, well, someone's going downtown and it ain't you. Okay. Oh no, yeah. By the way, you're fired. So, okay, we're gonna pass no chance. We're gonna go to the good old community sack. Community sack or hood sack is what it's called. And here we go. Oh no. Okay. Says either you bought cheap shit or weapons grade crack. Any rate, your hooker's dead. All right, and no one will help you with the yard work. Pay $200 each player for their silent cooperation. Of course, he's there holding the leg of the hooker, and yeah, you gotta bury yourself. That's no good. All right, so that's Hood Sack. We're out there. So, all right, hopefully better luck next week. We'll see what we get. All right, so just sorry, I mean to clear my throat about there. One of the things I wanted to get into first was let's get into the whole thing with George Washington. George Washington's a douchebag, and I I know that someone's like, well, no, he's just trying to have a hot take. No, I'm not having a hot take here. This is the actual. You can quantitatively prove this. He, um, landowner, does his thing. Whenever whenever the British and the French are fighting, the whole French and Indian War thing going on, and he tries his luck at being a appointed lieutenant colonel in the like you say the British Imperial forces here on the lands of the United States. Okay, now that is at that time you had to be a wealthy landowner within the United States, and you would probably never make it past brigadier general. Never, because you being an American and not being British, they would not let you go any further than that. So lieutenant colonel was about as far as you can go, unless you could, actually really whoop some ass. And that is something that he just really did not do. Um, More of an indoor girl, I'll put it that way. And I guarantee you, if he's waiting for me at the Golden Gate, so that's fine. And I am pretty sure I'll prove myself right. But um, so he doesn't do very well at that. He's given command, doesn't really do much, and he ends up going back home, hanging out in Virginia at his land. Now, remember, he did have land, but his wife, actually, when he married into her, got a lot more. So the passing of her father, he even got a lot more than that. So he's kind of like a dude that just kind of married into a whole bunch of shit. And we all know that guy or that girl. So anyway, not really that big of a deal. He does that. So anyway, with that being said, he now is learned that the Americans, what was called the colonists. I mean, at the time, it's such a hard name to give to those people that live there. They're like, it's almost like they're colonists, almost like they're renting something or not going to be there for long. It's kind of like watching Alien and the colonists. Anyway, the colonists are going to have an uprising. And I was like, all right, cool. We don't want to put up with this British, oppression bullshit, whatever. So starts showing up at the Continental Congress. Philadelphia, a whole bunch of the bigwigs, all the elected delegates that are showing up that are representing each state within the colonies. So, and they usually send someone send like an adjutant with them. So you have 13. All right, obviously multiply that by 2, you have 26, and then with the adjutants, aide camps, whatever, you'd have a couple more coming up there. So you'd have all these people sitting down there. All right, well, he was not elected. He was just showing up, and he was just being in the background. All right, so when it comes down to it, he also starts showing up in a military uniform. All right, well, this is the biggest deal. All right, he is not an officer. He's not commissioned in the Colonial Army or whatever, the clandestine name was quiet, don't talk about, revolution, because not everybody wanted to talk about revolution, until obviously Declaration of Independence, which we even had one person sustained from that vote. And he's the douchebag showing up in the back in a military uniform he made himself. So it's like nobody said, all right, wait a minute. All right, I get that that's like George Washington and shit. Well, why is he showing up like that? And I was like, all right, imagine if he was dressed like a clown. Yeah, his clown been having on because you know what? I really need someone to fucking entertain my kids at their birthday. I need a clown. They're like, oh, wait a minute. There's this dude in the back corner dressed like a clown. And that's exactly what happened. So whenever it came to the point where the olive branch petition that was sent to King George at the time was absolutely denied. And it was basically said, I'm going to hang each one of you fuckers from a tree. And you're like, well, fuck. I guess that kind of solidifies all of us in our stance now, what we're going to be doing. And we now need an army. And we can now say it out loud. We can have an army. So, now who's going to lead us? And they're like, wait. There's this douchebag at the back that keeps showing up in fucking military uniform that he made himself. Why don't we just go ahead and vote him in? Next thing they were like, this weird bullshit. It was like, you know what? George Washington is the guy. We're going to make him lieutenant general. Which at the time, there was, obviously with the whole military structure now, which, of course, leave it to the freaky deaky Navy to fuck that all up. But be my little general. So brigadier, major general, lieutenant general, and then general. So be my little general. So that right there, he was going to be showing up for the first time as lieutenant general. So you're like, okay, well, that's fine. And now you get to go lead these people. All right. Well, you look at his military record; he didn't do so fucking well at all. So, the one thing that you do have is that he actually, and I'm trying to think of his name, is it Nathaniel Green? And it's no, I should remember this, but I don't. But basically, the guys that are in charge of the Battle of Cowpens. Battle of Cowpens is something that is just a straight up British ass whooping. That they should have seen it coming. In Washington, it gets all the credit because he put these guys in charge. So once again, it's the whole Grant and Sherman thing is that the guys underneath you are just absolutely badasses. So anyway, or the Zachary Taylor thing where Zachary Taylor with the Mexican Wars that he had so many damn so many great generals below him that he just looked like an absolute rock star, and it wasn't. It was a staff. So anyway, I digress. The biggest thing is that George Washington, I mean, number one, he's a gambling degenerate. I mean, you saw that shit with, like, The Last Dance with Michael Jordan, where he's, like, betting, like, some fucking security guard how close he can get to the wall with a quarter. All right, well, George Washington was the same thing. All right, so it's just I guarantee you he gets his boots on faster type guy, and he's over there, like, salivating, I'm winning money. I'm like, all right, whatever. So it's a competition thing, but it's like competition at its just minutiae form. It doesn't matter. So he's that guy. Also, a very minuet man, if you will. He was a dancer. So it's like, I guess, be like John Travolta, I guess. I don't know, but I know that from what I heard, he's very minuet man. Every girl wanted to dance with the guy, and I guess that's cool and all, but I mean, anyway, that doesn't matter. So he was by far the epitome of an opportunist. He wasn't going to miss his chance to get what he thought was due to him. So um, another thing is once we're talking, I mean, since douchebaggery does spread, is that Alexander Hamilton's another one. So Alexander Hamilton is George Washington's aide de camp. And if you look at it, if you're in the military and you ever, I mean, just go into Microsoft Outlook and go look at people's title. If you can find anybody that has aide de camp within their thing, you can go ahead and just know that they're a douchebag because that's a term that just really doesn't mean much. And if you use it, it means you look too far and it's a term that doesn't get used. And the only reason I say that is because I looked through Microsoft Outlook one time and I found like 10 of them. Marine Corps officers that claim themselves to be aide de camp, and you're just like, you fuck your sister, don't you? And, all right. Now, I'm so glad you did that. Now I know who you are. So, anyway, so with that being said, that is Washington's aide de camp. So he's kind of like his pocket holder, but he can't go anywhere. It's kind of like one of those, those little fish that swim around on big like whales and manta rays or fucking sharks and just eat all the shit they don't eat or eat their shit when they shit. I don't know, but that's pretty much what it is. That's what an aide de camp is. Just an ass kisser, ball washer, if you will. Bunch of ball washing bastards. Yeah, that's it. So anyway, so I mean, much to my dismay, whenever I was told it, like, no man, have you read that Hamilton thing? That's really great. It's really good if you look at it. It's a wonderful story. I was like, all right, I get the idea of Hamilton and this guy that's struggling, but don't cross reference with this dude. Fucking Alexander Hamilton was an imperial douchebag. He's the one that fucking wanted military uniforms just like his fucking boss wanted. He wanted us to, colonize, I think it was the West Indies, and just set up an empire. And it was like, to a lot of people, such as like John Adams and say Thomas Jefferson, they actually really like distance themselves from this guy because it was like it didn't make any sense. Because we just fought off an empire, why do we want to jump right into another one? And of course, I mean, it was a powder keg because with the whole thing with George Washington was about as close to a king as we got, and America was just completely done with kings. We're no more kings. We're out of the king business, and no more monarchs. No, this imperial shit. I mean, we're done with it. And, so this Alexander Hamilton guy starts talking about this bullshit, and not to mention on top of it, he gets brought in as the the Fed. I mean, he's pretty much the Secretary of the Treasury. So I think that was the title they gave him. So anyway, the titles back then were different. Henry Knox was the Secretary of War, which of course now is Secretary of Defense. But you know, he's brought in as I think Secretary of the Treasury. And of course, he was a whiz. I mean, he was the one that actually said, "All right, what we need to do is just assume our debt as credit," and it's absolutely brilliant. And that's what I mean. It turned around a lot of things when it came down to America being a belligerent. Because to be a belligerency and considered to be perfect from other countries, you have to have not only a military will to fight, borders, and means to fight. You have to have the financial backing to do all of those things, and getting the debt that other people could assume and buy from us. Of course, we see it now with China. China has a lot of our debt. That to become a very, very powerful country, and that's to come into belligerency. That's which, of course, now by the end of the American Revolution and winning, belligerency was kind of out the window. It kind of shot us into it, just kind of a superstar status of winning against England, and we did win, and that's something from a conversation way down the road. But back to the whole thing with George Washington and Alexander Hamilton. Is that Alexander Hamilton was a very dangerous guy. John Adams, of course, him being a dangerous guy himself, but more locked to the ideas of Locke and more of a jurisprudence mindset than a lot of those politicians at that time. So very, very, very important person. And he raised the red flags, and we were very lucky that um, he was killed in that damn duel by Burr because things could have been a lot worse if he stuck around. And I'm sorry for people that love the play, but Alexander Hamilton's like one of those guys who's like, all right, fucking bye. I mean, you need to go. So anyway, going back to the whole George Washington thing, he was absolutely known for just saying these stupid things right in front of the camera. So you know that it's not like the presidents where they set themselves up for these wonderful quotes. It's like where you have like FDR and like the only thing we have to fear is fear itself, and bullshit like that. And then, of course, with Kennedy, don't ask what you can do for your country, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, George Washington was the father of this. So if anybody, they have all of his officers in front of him, and he goes to read a letter from the Congress saying that the war's over. And of course, he goes to read it, and he's like, I can't read it because I lost my sight in service of my country. Like, dude, go fuck yourself. I get it. Yeah, you did a great job. I mean, but dude, just shut the fuck up. Read the letter. If you can't read it, pass it on to someone who can read it. Blah blah blah. And even Ethan Allen, I think, was the guy who was just like, "Is this guy for fucking real? Is he? Why don't you just have someone else to read it for you?" Anyway, so Ethan Allen, of course, being the monumental guy, did the joke about the British and the water closet that Lincoln tells in the movie Lincoln. Blah blah blah. Ethan Allen's a funny guy. So come to find out, him and was it Madison were good friends, and they're the ones that come up there, at a party, and they're the first one to break out the fart and dick jokes. Man, you're like, hell yeah, these guys want to be around these dudes right here. Anyway, wrecked them, damn near killed them. Everybody laughing. But yeah, the whole thing with George Washington's opportunity to come in at any given time and just go, yeah, fucking, I I should do this, I should be blah 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 blah. So later on, when it comes down to it, first president to, obviously be president of the United States. And of course, him coming in, it's like really unknown what he's going to do or how he's going to react. I mean, are we going to be pushed into another monarchy? Is, the checks and balances that are within the Constitution, are we all right? Are we going to be okay? And of course, he was a guy with a level head, and that's where he comes in to be the hero. This is where he's making good decisions, all right? Is when he shuts the fuck up. All right, that's it. It's like, okay, the whole thing is a Whiskey Rebellion starts. That happens in Pennsylvania, if I'm not mistaken, or Virginia. I forgot. You have to forgive me for the actual things. All I remember is the names. Anyway, the Whiskey Rebellion is where these guys have, they're making whiskey, and the United States says, shit, we need to tax this shit because these guys are making a whole bunch of money. We need to, get our fingers in that pie as quick as possible. And the guys making the whiskey, oh, fuck you, this is ours, you're not getting any of this. And rightfully so. This is the first time that, the countries actually get involved in whatever you're doing. And, of course, with these, hilljacks, rednecks, whatever I call it, when the hell are these guys from the city coming there trying to get, part of my, my cheddar, It's like, all right, fuck them. I completely understand them. But at the time, it's like, all right, cool. We're going to get a certain portion of what you're making. So, anyway, being law-abiding citizens, which they are not at this time, they raise up and go, fuck you, no taxation without representation. And, of course, George Washington, being smart, with being what he is at that time, said, no, y'all can't dust off an old term. I mean, we weren't being represented in London. We weren't. We had no representation. All right. We represent you here. So therefore, and they still said no. And he formed up an army. He was going to go whoop their ass. And see, that was old school shit. So I can't take everything from George Washington I would like to, because he was like, no, we're not going to beat you with paper. We're going to beat you with powder and with ball. So anyway, that being cool as shit, he said he was going to do that. And he broke the revolution. I mean the rebellion. So they turned around and decided they're going to pay their tax and stuff like that. So um, another thing during this time frame is that France and fuck, I don't even know how to say this. France and England. I'll say England because I don't. There's so many names of it. It's kind of like Britain, Great Britain, UK, English, and it's kind of like United States, States, Yankees, Yanks, US of A. Blah blah blah. There's so many things that you can hear, and in the comments, please tell me what is correct there. But anyway, those two, all three of these parties are not going to get along because of shipping and everything else. People want taxes off each other. Um, France is going to want money for not fucking with our sailors and our shipping. England's going to want the same. England's going to want money from France for not fucking with us. So I mean, it is a hodgepodge of things that are going on here within the shipping lanes, and of course with the tax of what everybody thinks is theirs. So in the next 20 years, each president's going to have a hard time making the decision. Do we go to war? Do we do this? Do we back this country? Who do we side with? And it's just, just is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But interesting altogether because it's like, all right, cool. Who are we going to pick as the being our ally this time? So one of the things that I can say about George Washington is that his first cabinet was the just imagine the 92 dream team. That's exactly what it is. I mean, and this is one of the things I get really proud about. Because you think about the what America produces at times when it needs it. That's one of the things that makes the country so damn great. It was like, cool, we got a black eye, we got a bloody lip. What are we gonna do? And then next thing you know, that's when we fucking go and find people that could go whoop some ass. So anyway, we set up our team. So first up, we got George Washington as president. All right, he ran first term, second term, no one even ran against him. Like, fuck you, we're not going up against him. We're just not doing it. It's kind of like, anyway. Yeah, so, okay, who we got next? Who's going to be his vice president? And next thing they're like, John Adams. They're like, but solid pick. Solid pick, John Adams. Okay, fine. Yeah, wrote the Massachusetts Constitution for their state. Okay, yeah, good pick. Who's next? Secretary of State, and they're like Thomas Jefferson. Like, whoa, fuck. All right, Thomas Jefferson, Secretary of State, outstanding, fine, good pick. All right, who are we gonna have for treasury? And they're like, how about this little guy? Alexander Hamilton. What about him? Not at the time, had not proven himself. He was like one of the only ones that were like, I don't know about this guy. And it was like, anyway, we're like, fine. He's a Washington guy. Whatever keeps the old Granny General happy. It's fine. We'll just pick him, let him go with him. All right, cool. And then Secretary of War, and they're like Henry Knox, and you're like, "Whoa, fucking bet, dude." All right, Henry Knox is one of the guys that I think it was Ticonderoga that he stormed with a certain amount of people, took their fucking cannons, told them to get the fuck out. We're taking your cannons, y'all can leave, but if you want to fight, fight. You can leave if you want to leave, but we're taking your cannons. You can go get fucked, and that's exactly what happens. So, anyway, and I think just out of just being the obnoxious guy he was, he's just that hard drinking, hard fighting type guy. Um, in Liberty and Independence, I think is what he named him. And yeah, so anyway, so it's him, and I'm trying to think of who else did he have there. He had War, Secretary of State, blah blah blah. Anyway, just with those group of guys, I would be hard pressed to go against any other cabinet besides them. And yeah, so it just, yeah, man, it was a different time too. So if you had say with Henry Knox, Secretary of War, he was fucking whooping ass. So he is, he's a general that proved himself. All right. Thomas Jefferson, I mean, wrote the Declaration of Independence. So not only do you have a guy that is somewhat interested, he's involved. So it just at this time you had such something so different compared to what you're used to is that you only had not people that were involved but weren't invested in things. So of course they're going to do a lot better job. And of course the whole malady happens with the vice presidency, which I'm really surprised they haven't had like any sort of legislation or amendment to giving that just exuding. I mean exuding, but increasing their power or what they can be. But John Adams found out real quickly that position was just absolute bullshit. And sitting on the Senate, you're like, oh, good, fuck me in the eye. What's going on here? This is terrible. But yeah. But anyway, I mean, much to the credit to George Washington, one of the greatest things he does, and I know that a lot of historians can agree with me with this. Um, One of the greatest things he does is that he is a president that probably, if he ran for a third term, would not be a third, fourth, fifth, and sixth unless his numbers weren't very good. He was not going to be contested at all. So, one of the things he does, he stands down. He comes to year 8. He's like, no, we're going to go ahead and pass the torch on to the next person. And in a military leadership type idea, he's all right. Well, we trained the guy that was below me good enough, so we'll just go ahead and I'm I've created my replacement, and it's time to go retire. I've had enough of this new country shit. I'm out, and that was it. So it was, and of course, all those people would go on to do their things. I think the only person that really didn't go on to do more after that was Henry Knox, and he just disappeared into the annals of history. So that's fine. And we wish we would have seen more of that guy because he's a really interesting character in the American back screen. So there's that. So obviously the next one, John Adams goes on, and John Adams is going to be for another day to talk about. So anyway, yeah. So another thing that I would like to transfer over to is the Star Wars thing. And this is really neat. I mean, Star Wars, a lot of people, I'm not one of those guys that's going to come out and just completely shit on Star Wars. Go, no, it's fucking gay. And, it's like, it's all DEI and all this. I'm like, no, Star Wars is what it is. And, it's yeah, I mean, there's certain parts of it I don't like, and there's certain decisions I know that were made that I just don't agree with. But I'm not gonna be all up in arms with Kathleen Kennedy and the girl that did the Acolyte series. I really don't care. It is what it is, and I wish that someday that there is a actual fine cleanse of what they consider to be, canon. I think the only really big mistake was, having Palpatine not be dead because that breaks the prophecy of Anakin Skywalker not being the chosen one. So that's where my real love kind of ends. One thing about Star Wars, I am not a Star Wars fan. I am an ILM fan, which a lot of people don't believe. Like, what are you talking about? Doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, no, I like X-wing fighters. I like IG-88. I like probe droids. I like the droids. I like the ships. And storyline, okay. I was like, well, what about Boba Fett? You like Boba Fett? Well, I like Boba Fett more as the image of Boba Fett, and that was a Joe Johnston. I mean, and that's an ILM thing, and that's where I kind of get torn. Well, the story is, I was like, oh yeah, well, what about Boba Fett's word best in the galaxy? And I was like, all right, well, no, he's kind of a family man now, so that's where the storyline. I don't hate it, but sometimes it just doesn't make sense. Now, him working with the Tusken Raiders, that was cool, but playing the alone card, eh, I don't know. I just, me personally, I kind of had a hard time with that. But one of the things that I do want to say about Star Wars, and it's really funny because a lot of people look down on Star Wars fans, and I just don't like it. And there's a reason why. The reason I don't like it is because it was a lot of stability and foundation for us in the 80s. I'll tell you my history. I was born in 77, so that was the year the Star Wars came out. My mother took me to go see Star Wars in 82, the year before I started kindergarten. That's 5 years later, and it was in the movie theater. So, to me, later on in life, looking back, it goes, that really means something. This damn movie is still in the movie theater. I mean, Empire came out 3 years before that, and they're still showing the first one in the movie theater. So, anyway, when I saw that, the Battle of Yavin changed my life as a kid, and I was like, that right there was movie making, and it was just my mind was absolutely fucking blown, just blown. I couldn't believe it. It was like what we saw, and it was like it was so real because everything that was put into it. And that's the cool thing about Star Wars. Star Wars, whenever they made things, they made it damaged, so it was telling the story instantly. So you see it on the screen, and it's automatically storytelling. So you know that that thing's been somewhere, and you know that it's got its battle stripes, and it's seasoned, and it's proven, and it's tough, and it's there. So if things are there, you know that they have survived whatever was in front of them. So to me, it was just almost like you're picking up from something, like you're picking up from a book you already started reading a long time ago. And that's one of the things I loved about Star Wars storytelling, because it knows it only has a short amount of time and so much to say, but it gets it right every fucking time. It's like, all right, you're not left out. And even if you are, there are annuals to go read. And in the 80s, I'll tell you what was really cool is that if you got stuck, I'm not stuck, but if you went to a gas station and your mother was going to get, going there to get smokes, beer, whatever they were getting, you had about 2 minutes. I mean, 2 minutes was actually a stretch to go run to the magazine section and read up as quick as you could. You were absorbing it all because you're like, all right, fucking. I lived out in the country, so you didn't have much. So if you get to the 7-Eleven, which is right there on, Pat Booker and Highway 78, and anybody that grew up in San Antonio, well, I guess San Antonio, North San Antonio, knows what I'm talking about. It's right there by Randolph Air Force Base. There was a 7-Eleven there way back in the day, and you had to read as quick as you could. So you're like, okay, fuck. Boba Fett. Who's this guy? All right, Boba Fett. All right, Zuckuss. Who's Zuckuss? All right, fine. Read about Zuckuss. All right, Bosk. Bosk. Read about all right, that's Bosk. Excuse me. That was by the time your mom was grabbing you, like, hey, look, we gotta go. I'm like, shit. So I was like, I think I read something about this Forlom guy, R2D4. Saw that. A couple other dudes. Okay, when we get back next time, we'll read about that. So anyway, so the one thing that was really cool about Star Wars is they have characters, all right, that you saw on the screen for like 5 seconds. All right, 5 seconds, but they have an hour of backstory, and that's movie making. That's like no shit doing your homework. That's where it's like, okay, we're gonna put this person on the screen, and not only do we have answers for you, we have reality for it, and you don't really see that nowadays. You don't see these characters that are put together, and it's this fast forward Marvel comic book people that are just, okay, we're gonna give you a splash screen of this, splash screen of that, but it was one of the things that made Star Wars great, and that was one of the reasons why Star Wars fans are the fans that they are, because we were given so little in a time of very little technology and information. But the information was there. If you were the one to find it, you beat your chest on that. I mean, that was one of the reasons why Star Wars fans always know about the characters, and we're well read, and that's what makes us annoying, and that's what makes us know-it-alls. And that's what I think that Lucas even handed off some of his characters to go, all right, here, look, I need you to make this guy look real and give him a backstory. And Lucas really didn't read up on it. So then when his fans show up, like, hey, Lucas, blah, 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 let that Forlom, and he's like, who the fuck are you talking about? And, you could see when he greets Star Wars fans, you can see his eyes, either because he's sick and tired of hearing of it, or he's like, got me. I didn't know about that. He goes, all right, when the lightsaber's in the snow on Hoth and Luke's hanging upside down, what's written on the bottom of that lightsaber? And you're like, hmm, shit, someone snuck that in. I don't know what that is. I forgot what it is. It's something written on there. Go look it up. You'll see it. But anyway, that's one of the reasons why Star Wars fans are so annoying. It just because we were so hungry and so thirsty in a time of no internet. So that's when new things that came out that, let's say, like Pokemon would be a good, and I hope I'm saying that as a Pokemon, whatever. But it seems the way that you say that it is derogatory in nature, Pokemon. But anyway, when that came out, there was internet, so you could look all that shit up. And I think that that was the basis, all right. Um, with Star Wars fans, they're fucking assholes. They're always talking about, how much they know, this, that, the other thing. It was like, no, it's not how much we know. Is we had to know that. It was like kind of like you couldn't just watch a Star Wars thing. It was like, all right, well, what company made the fucking X-wing? You're like, well, go ask them. They know. And I guarantee you, anybody's watching that, there's one guy that answered it like, no, it's this guy. It's like, it's just shit like that. So, anyway, um, just wanted to bring that up. It's kind of like an apology to other people that didn't, think that Star Wars guys are assholes. And I'm not really a Star Wars guy. I do appreciate it. I do understand it. I'm not gonna lie to you. One of the things that Star Wars, one of the things that just really made me happy was Rogue One. And I'll tell you my order of movies. Uh, in going from least to greatest, Phantom Menace being the worst, and the worst in I'll watch anytime it's on. So it really doesn't matter. It's just out of all the worst. So um, Attack of the Clones being second to the last, Revenge of the Sith being third from last, and then Empire being like number four, Jedi. No, I take it back. No, I take that back. Number four would be A New Hope. Empire is better than New Hope. Number three would be in Empire. Number four would be New Hope. Number three would be Empire. Two, second to last, would be Rogue One. And I'll tell you why Rogue One is number two to me. It's just because Rogue One just opened up everything. To me, it was an eyegasm to watching the starfighters, watching the X-wings, and of course, I've always been a fan of Gold Squadron, and watching New Hope and watching the Gold Squadron just getting wiped out, to me, that always broke my heart because those guys were absolutely awesome. And there was a name why the old guy was called Pops and Gold Leader, and then we just lost Gold Leader not too recently. So rest in peace. I think his name was Angus something. I don't remember. I got his picture on his wall and I have his autograph. Um, um, but Gold Squadron, it was like it was so sad. And later on in life, growing up, and of course getting my master's in military history, that one of the things I did learn is that in World War II, a lot of the torpedo running aircraft in World War II, American based, did not do well at all. So you had the Avenger, Helldiver, and I think the SPD Dauntless, Douglas Dauntless, had the option of running torpedoes, but the torpedo runners did not do well at all. So there's several times I said like Midway where they were going for their run and each one of them got wiped out. So hearing that all the torpedo runners got wiped out was not strange. So it was really sad that whenever George Lucas was making Star Wars, that he actually added history into it. So you're like, all right, well, Gold Squadron being wiped out, obviously giving Red 5, Luke given the only shot to shoot torpedoes, proton torpedoes into the shaft. But just, it was really cool because they took footage from the 70s and sounds from the 70s too. So if you're a big ILM nerd, you picked up on a lot of the sounds from Rogue One going, yeah, I remember that. That was in the old 70s. I remember that sound. But anyway, with the Gold Squadron coming in and doing their run, it was really, really interesting that how things were divided up, and later on being, in aviation in the Marine Corps, knowing the difference between bombers and fighters, and how each one had their descriptive role. But one of the things that was really cool was in Rogue One is when they started dropping their bombs and they were shown to be effective. Um, and they showed the female that supposedly is the one that flew off on. You watch New Hope, there's a Y-wing that actually made it out, Gold Squadron, and of course it's supposed to be a female by canon, and I have absolutely no idea who it is. But so with trying to get back on point here is that Rogue One was good in that way, and it was an eyegasm, absolute eyegasm. If y'all haven't seen the Danger Zone, it just makes absolute sense. Just watching the X-wings and the Y-wings whoop ass, it was really good to see. And of course, them bringing out the Hammerhead blockade runner, that was a little fucking weird, but whatever. It didn't really fit in. It was like, it just reminded me of the Batman going to his utility belt for the shark repellent. You're like, okay, that just fucking happened. All right, whatever. So yeah, and then of course Jedi is my favorite. I know a lot of people, even if you watch Clerks, you hear Randall say blasphemy, and I mean no, it was it? No, Dante said Empire, yeah, and then Randall said blasphemy. But I like Jedi just because of just it was another eyegasm. Of course, at that time, '83 to me was I was 6. I was 6 years old. Yeah, 6 years old. And seeing all the explosions, the speeder bikes, I mean, Sarlacc, it just everything was cool. So yeah. Anyway, like I said, I'm an ILM fan. I do like Star Wars, and I do one of the things I do appreciate other people's opinions. So one of the things that's really cool, my nephew, me and him were big Star Wars fans, and I talk shit about Phantom Menace every once in a while, and he rang my bell one day when we were talking. He goes, you know what? I don't appreciate when you do that. That's my Star Wars, and I was just like, word. I completely understand that. I completely understand that. And I told him we got in an argument, and that's when I knew that my nephew was a big Star Wars fan. When we started talking about the score, because that's one of the things I do also love about Star Wars is John Williams. John Williams' scores of those movies are absolutely phenomenal. So I started talking to him, and I was like, all right, well, the first, original 3, 4 through 6 were the best scores. And he was like, yeah, I agree with you. I was like, okay. I would put Asteroid Field from Empire or Return of the Jedi from Return of the Jedi or the Throne Room against anything in Phantom, Clones, or Sith. And he goes, what about the Duel of the Fates? I was like, Duel of the Fates sucks. And it was the first time I've ever seen him saying, I firmly disagree and you don't know what you're talking about. I was like, okay. The first time you get a jab to the nose, you're like, oh, fuck, okay, I'll look into it. So I actually looked into Duel of Fates, and I was like, that's some good work. It really is. I haven't warmed up to it as much as he has, but then again, I've been listening to those songs ever since I was, a kid. And of course, I think the Imperial March and the Star Wars fanfare and Throne Room ending, I think where they cut to to the credits, some of the most familiar songs in the world of the basically the documented history of humans. I mean, it's just it people remember it. So, all right, so yeah, I'm just want to get back to it. Is that George Washington was a douchebag. So was Alexander Hamilton. Henry Knox, probably the greatest of all. He was the one that we didn't see of. So it's like whenever you see like these good secretaries of defense and war come in and leave, maybe there's a reason why. And I'd like to say that about hats off to Mad Dog Mattis. I have actually met the guy, and he is the guy you think he is. So, um, I put it that way. And that's for the people that think that he has betrayed our country somehow or betrayed Trump. He whatever. I don't care. I met the guy, and he was a Marine like I was or is, and I like the guy. So I'll put it that way. So we'll end it with this. Okay. My toy of the week, because I don't really like toys. I mean, they're neat, but they kind of remind me of being a kid. And being a kid in the 80s and 90s was absolutely amazing. So, one I got this week is Gears. Now, anybody's familiar with the actual toy when this came out, it didn't look like this. It was a lot smaller. This right here is a very reinforced blister pack. All right, so, and not to mention, this is a remake where they make it look more like um, what's on the box and what's in the cartoon. So this is kind of a mixed bag of this. Gears, Gears, I think at Toys R Us when he came out in 84 or 85, around that time frame, it was about $2-3. All right. And I would say it maybe $5. But this guy, I think I gave this guy up for toys at parties that I was going to invited to. A lot of my friends got Gears because he was available everywhere. You could not go anywhere, and it was one of the ones I did not own. But you can go anywhere in this guy. So it was like, okay, Gears. And then of course now, if I'm not mistaken, he was the one that came out to be like a tree hugger or some shit like that. Yeah, it's nobody wins a war, somebody loses, and they turned him into like a tree hugger. Right. Well, Gears is like one of the ones that a lot of people hate, and that's fine. I get it. He turns into a truck, and it's like blah blah blah, and it reminds you a lot of that truck that was on like remember the movie Tremors with Kevin Bacon? That's kind of what the truck looks like, but it's red and blue. One thing that's really weird about him is his strength is really high. I didn't know that, but yeah. And the really cool thing about these boxes, they brought out a lot of the original art that was on the back. So I'm gonna hold this up here, and I know that you really can't see it as well as you know. Download the picture, whatever else. But this is where you saw a lot in the '80s, where they gave the art to someone said, "Here, draw this." You don't really have to be that accurate. Just draw it. And um, another one that was really bad with this was Capcom in their games. The illustration that were on the front of the game boxes was like, all right, well, what the fuck is this? I don't know what this is. So anyway, if you look at this on the back, it's just kind of like, of course, it has Optimus Prime and a gun that he didn't have. It has Starscream holding a gun that was a gun. He did, he was just supposed to be on his wrist. Blah blah blah. And then of course it has like three characters. I mean, they represent. I don't know. There's like 4 or 5 the same guy floating around. And yeah, it was really strange. But another thing that's really fun. If you look here, it shows a picture of I think Bumblebee is like right here. Bumblebee is floating around, and for some reason, when you went to go buy Bumblebee was in the next version. So one with the Dinobots, Insecticons, and I think who was it? Not the Constructicons. Dinobots. Oh, and Jetfire. So it was that kind of 1.2, 1.5 version. But yeah, another really cool thing to have is I did like Transformers a lot. Transformers were something that were fresh because the toy, when it transformed, it actually really looked like what it was supposed to look like. And what they did was that the robot looked like shit. And it was really cool that these studio versions are now going back and they're like, all right, we're going to make it look like a cool toy. I mean, a cool uh, vehicle, whatever vehicle there is. And we're going to make it look like what the robot looked like on the cartoon. So, yeah, they did a really good job of that. But the problem is now it takes like 41 steps to transform them when the other ones it took like 3. And of course, you could tell now you look at it, they took the easy route. But anyway, excuse, sorry. So yeah, I'm gonna definitely close it out with that. And if leave it in the comments if y'all want to say refute me on anything, that's fine. I have no problem with that. I
do not have a problem with people not agreeing with me. It's been happening my whole life. So anyway, yeah. So if there's anything y'all would like me to bring up, talk about indefinitely, any certain president you want me to talk about, I can do that. Or a battle, we could do that. Or if there's any Transformer toy, Transformer, or see the other ones, so kind of like Star Wars toys or any Star Wars topics, I can do that too as well. So anyway, yeah, y'all drive safe.
Bunch of ball-washing bastards.
That's what I fucking said.